So at Draft FCB, we're all about numbers, and I'm a data guy in the numbers department. So here are some numbers that matter. Using a paid media, which happened the first time back in 2000, reversed a decades-long trend of lower participation. And the next number really says why we want people to participate. In the past, the participation rate has been around 65, 64. That's 65% of the households in America return the form by mail. We have to count everybody, so that means 35%. We have to actually go knock on their doors and find out what's going on in those households. That costs money because if you hire people, there's a whole operational issue to it. So for every 1% we can get an increase in the response rate, there's been some estimates somewhere around between $85 to $100 million are saved in operational costs. So social media highlights. Now remember, we only had one time to get this right. The campaign started in earnest in January of this year. Had a sort of like a kicking launch-off point in February at the Super Bowl. So we did an ad for that, and then it just continually built up and moved into what we call the motivation phase, which people would then get the form in their mailbox, and then they would send it back. And so we couldn't sort of traditionally in marketing, you think you can sort of we learn, we assess, we optimize, and we go back out. We don't really have that luxury with this particular campaign. So small wins, which we talked about earlier, wasn't a viable option for us. We had to be right the first time, and I'm going to show you about the research that put us in the right position. But with social media, we used it as an early warning indicator from a listening standpoint because we weren't going to get the results back until March and April, or June actually, until things finally settled down. So we couldn't wait till then to say, okay, we've done well, we haven't done well. So social media from a listening perspective was one of our early warning indicators that we use to indicate for us that we are moving in the right direction. And I think there was a question earlier about how do you do measurements or success. And so one of the things that we did was we established benchmark periods or quiet times that we weren't doing as much advertising or as much activity wasn't happening through our PR firm or our partners. So we established that as sort of like a goal or a bar, and we needed to continually beat that, and it needed to move in unison with the spending that we were doing with our paid advertising campaign. So social media was also used as a platform to react to criticism that was out there. We got a lot of criticism from the Super Bowl. Why are we spending $2.4 million on a 30-second spot? We can use that money for other things. So we had to rebuttal those comments. The overall spending of $300 million is a lot of money. So how do you sort of justify that? Technology issues. There had been some bad use of technology earlier in the Census Bureau's effort when they tried to use handheld computers to try and help do the count. That project didn't go well. They had to go back to pen and paper, and they spent a lot of money on that project, and they got a lot of grief on that. So again, government waste. So how do you sort of combat that? And inappropriate language. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. They sort of all the things that we did not anticipate in the marketplace, this was one that it was right in front of our face, and I'll show you how that worked out, but we didn't anticipate that. Anyway, so use social media to monitor and see what's going on in the marketplace. I'll show you how that worked, and then to react back into. I think one of the things that we did, and I think some of the questions with the panel was earlier, is how do you react and how do you know when to react, and where these things came about, where they came about in social media. That is where, along with external channels, we put the message back in saying, if there's an issue on a blog or on a site, or there's a guy on my2census. I think it's a .com, it might be a .gov, who is highly critical of the Census Bureau. We actually put content back on his website. So we went back to the source, back to the channel that the information came from to sort of help combat and reverse negative commentary. Facebook page, 92,000 fans. There was a road tour. There was actually a vehicle several vehicles that went throughout the country that people can sort of interact with. From a social perspective, the drivers were tweeting. No truth to the rumor they were tweeting and driving at the same time. Not quite sure about that, but they could certainly tweet after they parked the van and talk about it. And again, a chance to interact with the community beyond just the face-to-face. And then we had a microsite that tracked like a GPS where the van was and what some of the social events that were going on there. So kind of your Foursquare for the road tour. And a director's blog. Director Dr. Robert Groves was very active and influential, and he responded back to bloggers and had his own point of view and commentary. And I'll show you some activity on that in a minute. So he became the face, if you will, not only the leader of the entire Census Bureau, which I think is about 1,500 to 2,000 individuals, but also to the community at large. So that's how that was used for making sure that we could put a nice little face on what we were doing. And finally, we worked with Google Maps to create heat maps, and we would do, as the campaign was moving on and evaluating, we actually had a great partnership with the Bureau. They were sending us data daily. I had a comment on that. You know, me trying to tell the Census Bureau how to handle data is like me trying to tell the Beatles how to write a song. That was a tough conversation, but together on their side they were committed, on our side we were committed, all our agencies, so we really wanted to use data and exchange data, and so we used Google Heat Maps to foster like a friendly competition. You know, Maryland is doing better than New York, how about that? Or California is not doing as well as Texas, and can the two mayors, in, you know, one in San Diego and one in El Paso, can they sort of put together a friendly competition to try and say, hey, my town will beat yours, in a friendly way, not in a negative way. We all know what the implications were for money, but this allowed the public, I think more importantly, the public can then actually see every day, if they wanted to, the progress of how the campaign was going at the ultimate result, the number of forms being returned. So, you know, we certainly want to look at activity online and website activity, and, you know, number of articles that have been read. And I know she left earlier, but USA Today was consistently doing fantastic articles on the census and how important it was. So we had a lot of play from the press. But here was allowing anyone, John Q. Public, to go in. You could download the data. You can go there now if you wanted to. It's a site, the website. If you just put in Take 10 in Google, that'll pop up as one word, Take 10 with the 1 and a 0. And you can download the data and you can see how it progressed every single day of the campaign. So, and the colors meant something, and people can drill down. So that was another way of monitoring what's going on. And the director would talk about that. Hey, we just hit 55%. We're ahead of our goal. Or we hit 60%. We're still ahead of our goal. And there's some areas not doing well, and some people can react to it. So really that two-way communication of using data, using social media as a sort of a mouthpiece, and then wrapping it all up into our marketing campaign. Okay, Smart Wall. Dr. Mo talked about this earlier. We have like a mission control center at the agency in which we put all this data at people's fingertips. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how we use data from traditional and non-traditional sources to make sure that we were on track and we were measuring, and social media was a part of that. The way this works, we have a room with 8 TV screens on the wall. They're all connected to a computer, and data was coming in each and every day from different sources, and we can sort of monitor in real time what was happening with the campaign. We have a Knights of the Round Table, Knights of the, King Arthur's Knights Round Table in our office, and you can sort of go through the data. And then, to tell you the honest truth, we would spend maybe every day. We had a 9:30 call, 9:30 to 10:30, with the bureau on the other end. We'd spend maybe 10 minutes talking about data, and the rest talking about strategy. What are we going to do next? And I'm going to show you some examples of that. But I think the real insight here was that we would use Smart Wall and visualize information very quickly, and it eliminates the need to say, do I have the latest one? Where's that PowerPoint? Did you call Fred? No, that's gone. It's all updated every day, and the interface and the graphics are simple to use and read, so it's not some treasure hunt to find data or information, and so we can go and start talking about strategy and next steps. So I'm going to go to results right away so you can see them. So we had a goal of getting 67% of the households to participate, and that factored in people who, just in general survey forms were not filled out at high levels. So that's been declining over years. Factored in people in much more diverse countries, so it's harder to reach them. So there was some inflation, if you will, or deflation was put into that number as a goal. We actually hit 72%, which was fantastic. And from the door-to-door, I told you some people don't fill out the form. We actually have to send them out door-to-door. That goal was to have, that was 5%. We had to do that for the country, and now we got it down to 3%. So that was actually a fantastic number for us. And ultimately, and I think it was actually updated this morning, the Census Bureau returned $1.6 billion plus back to the Treasury because the campaign did so well. They didn't need the money anymore to go out and count people. So That was our ultimate ROI. I know we talked about that earlier today, and that's the one we're most proud of, that we were actually able to help the government save money and return taxpayer funding.